Hello everyone, welcome back to Soccer Showdown. Joe Archino here with the one and only Martino Puccio, and there are so many different ways to start the show. It's been such an eventful summer, but we have to start first and foremost with a man who has commanded the world's attention, and that is Neymar Jr. This summer, becoming the most expensive football transfer in history after PSG spent over $263 million to acquire him from FC Barcelona. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure when you're Neymar right now, but he has shined in his debut with PSG. In his first 3 matches, 3 goals, 3 assists. I don't think anyone has any doubts about his effectiveness in Ligue 1. But I think what we're all wondering is how effective will he be in the Champions League? When you spend that kind of money on a player, you're paying him to deliver in the Champions League. Your thoughts on how effective he will be in this competition?
I think it's really interesting to see them buy the player that basically knocked them out of the Champions League last year. They played a fantastic home leg against Barcelona when they won 4-0, but it was just the disaster of all disasters when they went back to Barcelona to go play them in their house where they lost 6-1. So Neymar was the main component in them in Barcelona coming back and completing that comeback against PSG. So they buy their number 1 enemy. They add him to that team that was already doing well in the Champions League. And now today they officially announced they added Kylian Mbappe to the team as well. So they have a lot of firepower up front. They have a strong midfield and a strong defense as well. So they definitely have a really good shot at getting to the Champions League final for sure.
Well, now we transition to the club where Neymar used to call home, that is FC Barcelona, and things certainly don't seem like they're business as usual there right now. I think certainly you look at them and it seems like they're in a period of uncertainty, especially after their thrashing loss to Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup. But Martino, they obviously had a lot of money to spend after they lost Neymar to PSG. Part of that money was spent on 20-year-old Ousmane Dembélé, who becomes their most expensive player in Barcelona transfer history. 20 years old, 105 million euros. I think when we look at him, Dembélé has already gone on the record and said he's rejected any comparisons to Neymar. He said, quote, "There is a world between me and Neymar. Neymar is one of the best players in the world." And he also pointed out that he's only been playing professionally for 2 years now. So I think now when we look at him, Barcelona, yes, is still going to be looking to bring in more players, but fans have to be worried. Fans have been showing their disappointment, and now that Messi has still not signed a new deal, I think now that Neymar left, fans have to have that looming question. Is Messi going to leave us? What do you think?
To go back to one of your points that you were mentioning on how they've been failing to replace some of these players, there was rumors about Andres Iniesta leaving to go to Serie and joining Juve. They haven't found worthy replacements for Xavi. And even Carlos Puyol, too. I wasn't that big of a fan, as you know, as I said on the show, of their midfield. I don't think they have enough depth to win the Champions League. They certainly don't have enough depth up front, since they lost Suarez already for the first month. Dembele's a really good talent, but at the same time, he was right. You can't compare him to a player like Neymar, who's 3rd best in the world. He's going to be fighting for the Ballon d'Or this year, and there's no doubt about that. And then the whole fact about their greatest player in their history that hasn't signed that contract for them, it's a little worrying because you keep on hearing the rumors of stuff, and you have players like Iniesta that might possibly leave that you thought would be playing for the club for life. So I think it's something to be a little worried about, but I think the most important thing right now is how they perform on the field. Because if they have a good product on the field, there's a good chance that Messi is going to be willing to stay to start a new project.
Well, Barcelona has gotten off to a good start in La Liga despite all these circumstances, but now we move to a club where it has been a catastrophic failure of a start to their season. That is Arsenal Football Club. Martino, we talked last season so much about Arsene Wenger, if his days are numbered there. Well, we look at Arsenal, and they've started the season with 2 losses out of their first 3 matches. They lose to Liverpool 4-0, and it was a gut-wrenching loss. They were outmatched, outplayed, and just quite frankly, Liverpool just had more energy and looked like they were more determined. They didn't even they failed to register a shot on goal against Liverpool. So now the questions, as always, are being brought up again. Arsene Wenger, is it finally time? It has been a catastrophic start that's been a failure. Is it the end for Arsene Wenger?
I don't know how many times we could possibly say this. He's absolutely run his course at the club. He's been the club's biggest hero in terms of management to their biggest villain. So I think it's absolutely pathetic to see that they buy a player like Alexandre Lacazette and don't start him against Liverpool in a game like that, especially when you have this whole Alexis Sanchez saga going on. So that's a poor move there. They were playing terrible against Leicester City in the opening game of the season, where they were just making too many defensive lapses, and it's been a consistent problem for them, not just past years, even this year too. So I mean, the fact that they still have this same voice for the players to hear, they need someone fresh in there. They don't need their Marvin Lewis situation, because that's basically what it's come to be. And that's really saying something, because this was a man who led Arsenal to an undefeated season, and there hasn't been one since in the Premier League. So it really says a lot about where Arsenal and Arsene Wenger has come in recent years.
While Arsenal is very far from their winning days have been all Juventus has known the past few seasons. We move now to Italian Serie A, where Juve is looking to secure a 7th straight Italian Serie A title. Martino, we've said so much about this dominant streak of Juventus these past few seasons, and it looks like they're going to look to continue to do so. But so far in Serie A, 5 clubs have won their first 2 matches. But even in that group, Juventus is, of course, in there, and their young stud, Paulo Dybala, is one of them. Paulo Dybala has gotten off to a great start. He wears the legendary number 10 shirt now this season, 23 years old. He's got 4 goals already this season. I think now when we look at Paulo Dybala and Juve, everyone is asking the question, can he lead Juve to that 7th straight title? And if there is anyone who can knock Juve off that pedestal, who do you think that it will be?
I think this was a huge season for Paulo Dybala. A lot of people were questioning his performance in the Champions League final against Real Madrid and the flat second half that they had. I think giving him the number 10 is something special, and it's something a player of his caliber is able to handle. So the fact that he's off to a great start, he's definitely been the best player in the league so far. I mean, Juve's been struggling so far, in my opinion. They have a couple defenders like Barzagli and Chiellini who are getting up there in age. They've been susceptible to injuries, and they've lost Bonucci, who's probably the best defender in the world, depending on who you ask. The fact that it's Buffon's last year as well, and they got it back up in Szczesny, which isn't even in the same stratosphere of quality, I think that they're good enough to win the 7th straight, but then I think you really got to look at Napoli here for this season, especially this season. They didn't give up any players. They keep the same team, and some moves that you don't make are the best ones. So I think them keeping their unit together, a cohesive unit, one that has great chemistry. They have a lot of firepower up front with Lorenzo Insigne and Mertens, who had a fantastic year last season. They have a great midfield. They have a lot of depth with the youngster Diawara, who I love, who played great against Real Madrid in the home leg in the Champions League last year. I really do think they have a lot to fight Juve for the title and potentially knock them off. Now, as for other teams possibly fighting for the Champions League spot or in the future to knock off Juve, I have the 2 Milan clubs. Obviously, AC Milan finally invested after new ownership, after Silvio Berlusconi sold the majority after 30 years at the helm. They invested over $200 million in the club and might look to make more moves as of today. As for Inter, they already had a unit set. They had players. All they needed was stability. And they got that with Luciano Spalletti, who's one of the best coaches in the league. Now, they're playing very well to start off. They went to Roma's house, and they beat them 3-1. Regardless of how you thought that Roma probably should have gotten more out of that game, the fact is they still won that. So they're off to a great start. And Icardi is really in his own, just like Paulo Dybala is. And it's really going to be an interesting dynamic over the next few years on how much of a fight there's going to be for this title, because it's not going to be Juve running away with it every single year now. I think the tides are slowly starting to change.
He is a wealth of information, and that is all we have for this episode of Soccer Showdown. Thank you, everyone, for listening, as always. Until the next time, Joe Archino and Martino Puccio. As always, keep on tuning in to Soccer Showdown.